Welcome back to the deep dive. Let's set a scene. I think it's a pretty familiar one, probably quite frustrating for many listeners.
Okay.
You're on the phone, right? Maybe talking to a new acquaintance in the US. Could be business, could be, I don't know, a neighbor you just met, and the conversation's going great, you're feeling good, tracking everything, and then bam, it just hits a wall.
Right. That moment.
Yeah. Maybe they drop an idiom you've never heard, or, their voice kind of fades out just as the siren goes by.
Well, they just speed up for a second. Happens all the time.
Exactly. And suddenly, what felt solid, those words, they just turn into this blur. You feel adrift, totally lost, trying to grab the meaning. Why?
Because the visual confirmation is gone.
Precisely. That quick sinking feeling, that sense of being lost without a face to anchor onto, that's exactly what we're unpacking today.
Yeah, that feeling, that sort of cognitive vertigo, where comprehension just vanishes for a second. That tells us everything about what this deep dive needs to cover. Our mission here really is to get past needing that visual scaffolding, that face-to-face comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
We're really tackling how to master English comprehension when that visual crutch, as you called it, is taken away.
So we're talking phone calls?
Phone calls, conference calls, podcasts, definitely audiobooks. Basically, anytime you're relying purely on your hearing, just your ears.
And this isn't just like listening better in a vague way, is it? It's about building something more fundamental, a more resilient understanding.
Absolutely. We've talked before on the deep dive about some key pillars, haven't we? Things like chunk listening, using repetition effectively.
Listening for examples and evidence, yeah. Memory strategies, too.
Exactly. And when you take away the visuals, all those skills, they suddenly become, exponentially more critical. They're put under serious pressure.
So the goal isn't just to survive those audio-only moments.
Not at all. The goal is to train yourself, train your brain to stop seeing that ambiguity, that fuzzy moment as a failure. Instead, you see it as a chance to grow.
An opportunity.
An opportunity. We want to help you build this independent, really robust audio memory so you can decipher that unseen orchestra of speech, as the outline puts it.
I like that phrase, unseen orchestra.
Yeah. And perform well, confidently, even when things are unclear or the speech is really fast and reduced.
Okay, so let's dive in. Where does this difficulty actually start? We need to understand just how much our eyes are usually doing for us, right?
Exactly. We have to start with recognizing the hidden hand, our profound reliance on visual cues.
It's easy to forget communication isn't just sound waves hitting our ear.
It's fundamentally multisensory.
Yeah.
That's how humans operate. We think conversation is purely auditory, but biologically, evolutionarily, it's multimodal.
Multimodal.
Meaning using multiple senses together. From the moment we're born, we're linking sounds to sights. Think about a baby.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly do they connect the sound daddy with the specific look of their father's face? It's instant. That integration, sound and sight, that's the brain's default setting.
And it's not something we consciously decide to do. It happens automatically, deep down.
Completely subconscious. And the best kind of mind-bending proof of this, it's the McGurk effect.
Ah, yes, the McGurk effect. It really highlights this integration, doesn't it? Can you walk us through what's happening there?
Sure. It's this fascinating perceptual illusion.
Yeah.
Basically, if you play someone the sound of a syllable, let's say ba.
Okay, hearing ba.
But at the exact same time, you show them a video of someone's lips clearly pronouncing a different syllable, like ga. Your brain often doesn't register either one accurately. It kind of splits the difference. It synthesizes this third blended perception. You might actually hear something like da or even da.
Wow. So the ears are getting ba, the eyes are getting ga, but the brain overrides both and creates da.
Precisely. It refuses to accept just the auditory data on its own when there's conflicting visual data. It feels compelled to merge them.
It's like the brain is saying, these two signals must belong together, so I'll find a way to make them fit.
Exactly. It treats the sound waves and the visual of the lip movements as, necessary inputs that have to be reconciled. It sort of calculates a weighted average between them.
So when we're on the phone or listening to a podcast,
we lose that entire visual stream. That crucial confirmatory input is just gone.
Yeah.
And the brain is forced to rely solely on the auditory track to figure things out, which is, frankly, much harder and way more prone to error.
That makes a lot of sense. And this visual reliance isn't just about lip-reading fine details, is it? It's much broader. Nonverbal cues play a huge role.
Oh, absolutely massive. Think about body language, gestures. They give us these instant shortcuts to meaning.
Like a shrug meaning, I don't know.
Or an emphatic hand gesture signaling certainty. a slow head shake showing skepticism, a furrowed brow for confusion or concentration. These things add meaning, clarify intent, and sometimes they completely override the actual words spoken.
And for language learners, especially with something like U.S. English, trying to pick up on things like sarcasm or irony without seeing the person, that's incredibly difficult.
It's almost impossible sometimes. Take that classic example. Someone says, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe drawing out the word great.
Okay.
If you see them roll their eyes as they say it, or if you give that little sarcastic smirk, the visual cue instantly tells you they mean the exact opposite.
But over the phone?
Over the phone, a non-native speaker, or even a native speaker not paying close attention, might just process the literal words. Great idea, and boom, misunderstanding.
And it applies to subtler things too, right? Facial expressions give us so much data about sincerity or humor or feelings someone might be trying to hide.
Definitely. Let's take a U.S. workplace scenario.
Yeah.
Your colleague says, maybe a bit flatly, I'm a little disappointed with the results.
Okay, a little disappointed. Sounds mild.
Linguistically, a little
Yeah.
suggests, mild frustration. And if you were face-to-face, you might see their mouth turn down slightly, confirming that mildness. But what if, while saying a little disappointed, their eyes are, like, blazing, wide, intense, maybe holding back real anger? That visual cue, the intense eyes, completely contradicts the word little. It reveals a much deeper, maybe suppressed anger or frustration. That crucial subtext. Totally lost on an audio-only call, you'd miss the real message.
We also don't always appreciate how much the environment itself, the situational context that we see, helps us interpret.
It narrows down the possibilities dramatically. Think about hearing an ambiguous phrase like, are you ready for your next shot?
Okay, next shot. Could mean many things.
If you see her in a doctor's office, talking to a nurse holding a syringe, meaning crystal clear, vaccine injection.
Right.
But hear that same phrase over the phone, no visual context, massive ambiguity. Is it a basketball shot, a photography shot, a shot of whiskey, a medical shot?
Your brain has to cycle through all those possibilities.
Exactly. The visual context instantly eliminates all the wrong paths, saving a ton of cognitive energy. Without it, you're actively juggling multiple potential meanings.
So all these things, the McGurk effect, body language, facial expressions, the environment, they act as this incredibly valuable, like a cognitive cushion for language learners.
That's a great way to put it, a cognitive cushion. It performs a vital function. It reduces the cognitive load.
How so?
Well, if you're battling an unfamiliar accent or someone speaking really quickly, having those visual cues provides redundancy. It lets your brain cross-check its guesses about the sounds in real time.
It's like an anchor.
It is. If the sound signal is a bit fuzzy or unclear, the visual input can hold the meaning steady. It lets the brain offload some of the processing work.
But when we're listening audio only,
We yank that cushion away. Suddenly, the entire processing burden slams onto the auditory system alone, and that's where we run into these blind spots.
okay, let's shift there then. Let's focus on the blind spot unique challenges of audio-only listening. What's the very first, most immediate impact when that visual cushion is gone?
The first thing is just this massive, really disproportionate jump in cognitive load.
Meaning your brain has to work way, way harder.
Way harder. Because it can't rely on any visual checks. It has to intensely focus on every single auditory detail, distinguishing tiny sound differences, figuring out where one word ends and the next begins, interpreting pitch changes, timing nuances, all just from sound waves.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. It depletes your working memory resources incredibly quickly. That's why you get listening fatigue much faster with audio-only input.
This is where that idea of phonological memory load comes in, isn't it? Holding sounds in your head.
Exactly. Imagine you're listening to a really dense science podcast, maybe about astrophysics.
Okay. Complex topic.
And the host casually drops a new technical term you've never encountered, like spaghettification. You know, what happens near a black hole.
Spaghettification. Long word, unfamiliar sound pattern.
And you don't see it spelled out. So your brain has to grab that long, tricky sequence of sounds, spaghettification, and hold it purely in auditory memory.
While still trying to understand the rest of the sentence.
Yes. And simultaneously trying to figure out what spaghettification might mean from the context while the host is already moving on to the next point. You're trying to build a mental box for this new word while decoding the current sentence and prepping for the next.
That sounds like a recipe for overload.
It is cognitive overload, and it's why listeners so often just drop the thread. They miss things because their working memory is maxed out just trying to hold on to the sounds.
And beyond just the sheer load, listening without visuals really amplifies problems with accents and pronunciation, right?
Brutally amplifies them. Accents you're not used to, especially with all the regional variations in the U.S., become much tougher to decode without seeing the mouth movements that might offer clues. And then you have homophones. Words that sound the same but mean different things. They become absolute landmines in audio only.
Let's use that U.S. regional phone call example again. I need to get a new pair of pants.
Right. For a non-native speaker hearing that over the phone, how do you know if they mean trousers pants or panes of glass for window panes?
Without context, you really can't be sure.
You can't. Face-to-face, maybe they gesture towards their legs or towards a window. But on the phone, you lack that disambiguating visual cue. Your brain might struggle because both meanings could potentially fit, depending on the prior conversation. It's a failure of what's called semantic priming.
Semantic priming, meaning related words helping you anticipate.
Yeah. If the topic was clearly established as clothing, your brain primes trousers. If it was home repair, it primes panes. But if the context is vague, both might be equally primed. And with only the sound, you're stuck. No visual tiebreaker.
And this gets even harder with the way native speakers actually talk, doesn't it? Connected speech reductions.
Oh, definitely. Native speakers are, let's be honest, efficient, maybe even lazy with sounds. We link words together, we reduce syllables, we drop sounds all the time.
Yes.
Did you eat yet? Becoming.
Did you eat yet?
Exactly. Or dropping the H sound in functional words like him or her, I saw him, or blending T and T in, yeah, sounds like in, I can't meet you tomorrow.
A learner might hear, yeah, and try to find that word in their mental dictionary.
Right. Wasting precious processing time, not realizing it's just a collapsed, unstressed form of you. We often don't realize how much our eyes help us segment those rapid, messy sound streams in real life.
The potential for the message to just become unintelligible seems really high. That example, what do you want to do for lunch?
Yeah, that's what do you want to do? Squished into maybe 3 quick syllables over a slightly crackly phone line. Without seeing the mouth form, wanna.
It could just sound like noise.
It absolutely can. It can seem like undifferentiated rapid sound that completely bypasses your ability to segment it into meaningful words. Total communication breakdown potential right there.
And then there are the emotional nuances. We mentioned sarcasm earlier. Even with intonation, it's hard to be sure without the face. Right.
It really is. Intonation gives clues, for sure. But it moves from interpretation based on multiple signals to pure conjecture based on just one.
So hearing, oh, that's just great over the phone.
That slightly higher pitch, the maybe strained tone, it suggests sarcasm. But is it? Without seeing the accompanying eye roll or the wry smile, you can't be certain.
And if you're already struggling just to decode the words,
you're likely to miss that subtle tonal shift entirely, or you might misinterpret it. You could easily mistake biting sarcasm for genuine enthusiasm, especially if you're focusing all your cognitive energy on just understanding the basic sentence. The crucial subtext is lost.
We also lose that environmental context we talked about. Not seeing the setting means more guesswork.
Definitely. It removes vital clues about the topic, the mood, even what the speaker might be doing. Your brain has to spend valuable energy just building a mental picture from sound alone.
Like listening to an old radio play.
Perfect example. You hear crashing waves, seagulls, maybe kids shouting in the background. Okay, your brain eventually figures out they must be at the beach.
But if you could see it,
you'd know instantly. That cognitive energy spent piecing together the setting from sound clues could have been used to focus more deeply on the dialogue, the characters' emotions, the plot.
Okay, so these challenges, the cognitive load, the accent issues, connected speech, missing subtext, lost context, they really stack up.
They absolutely do. Yeah. And they make it clear that strengthening your audio memory isn't just like a nice-to-have skill.
It's essential.
It's a strategic necessity if you want to function effectively, confidently, in so many real-world English situations today. Which leads us perfectly into thinking about the power of audio memory, your inner ear's superpower.
So let's define this power. What exactly is audio memory in this context?
We're defining it as the ability, the capacity to process information, store it, and then retrieve it using only the auditory input.
Exclusively sound.
Exclusively sound.
Okay.
It's about building meaning, retaining details, organizing thoughts purely from the sound waves hitting your ear without needing sight or text or any other kind of anchor.
And why is this specific skill so vital in, say, daily life in the U.S.?
Because modern life is just saturated with audio-only interactions. Think about it.
Okay.
Every time you make a doctor's appointment over the phone in California, every remote team meeting where you're discussing complex project details with colleagues in New York, maybe looking at different screens or no screen at all.
Right. Conference calls.
Listening to a news podcast like The Daily while you're commuting in Chicago, following an audiobook during a workout, using voice assistants like Siri or Alexa. It's everywhere.
The need for strong audio memory is constant.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the stakes can be high. If you miss or forget a key detail from that audiobook, you lose the plot thread. If you miss or forget a key detail from that business call, the project could go wrong. Or you make a mistake. The interaction breaks down.
And developing this skill has deeper cognitive benefits too, doesn't it? It's not just about avoiding mistakes.
Absolutely. When you force yourself to rely only on sound, your brain undergoes some really positive changes. It engages in much deeper processing of the auditory signal itself. Well, it has to develop a much keener ear for the nuances it might have ignored before the subtle phonological details, the rhythm, the rise and fall of pitch, the tone of voice, because those are now your primary clues to meaning.
So you're essentially fine-tuning your auditory cortex.
You really are. You're enhancing those bottom-up listening skills, the fundamental ability to recognize and categorize sounds accurately and quickly.
And that leads to more resilience, you said.
Definitely. Because you become less dependent on those external cues, like seeing the speaker's face, which aren't always available or reliable. This builds confidence. You feel more capable of handling varied or uncertain listening situations.
And it frees up mental resources.
Yes. As your brain gets better and faster at the basic decoding of sounds, it doesn't need to use as much of your precious working memory capacity just for that.
So the cognitive load decreases over time with practice.
Exactly. Those mental resources, those working memory slots that were previously completely occupied with just figuring out the words, they get freed up.
And what can you do with that freed up capacity?
Higher level thinking. Instead of just decoding, you can analyze the speaker's argument, compare it to what you already know, synthesize different pieces of information, formulate a really thoughtful response, engage in critical evaluation. You move beyond just hearing to truly understanding and interacting.
You shift from being a phonetic decoder to a critical interpreter.
Well put, yes.
And the final benefit you mentioned was cultivating independent learning.
Right. Once you unlock the ability to learn effectively and efficiently from audio-only sources, think university lectures online, in-depth documentaries, expert interviews on podcasts, you open up this vast, almost limitless world of authentic English content.
Content you can access anywhere, anytime.
Exactly. You're no longer tethered to needing a screen or printed transcript to learn something new in English. It's incredibly liberating for self-study.
This really does sound like developing a new kind of sensory superpower. So how do we actually build it? Let's get practical. Let's move to the Architect's Toolkit 6 strategies to strengthen your audio memory.
Okay, let's lay out the tools. Strategy A is absolutely foundational. Hyper-focus on phonology and intonation. We call this the sound sleuth approach.
Yeah, I'm sleuth. I like it. So this means deliberately shifting attention.
Yes. Shifting your main focus away from just what words are being said to how they're being said. Because the sound features has to carry some of the meaning that the missing visual cues normally would.
So not just listening for keywords, but listening for the sonic landscape. What specific features should we be tuning into, particularly in American English?
There are 3 big ones.
Yeah.
Word stress, sentence stress, and intonation patterns.
Okay, word stress. Like project the noun versus project the verb.
Exactly. That stress shift completely changes the meaning. Then sentence stress, which word in the sentence gets the main emphasis. That usually signals the core message or the new information. But for audio memory, intonation is perhaps the most crucial. The melody of the sentence, the rise in pitch for most questions, the fall for declarative statements.
And that tricky one in American English, the high-rise terminal.
Yes, HRT. Where someone makes a statement, but their voice goes up at the end as if asking a question.
Which can be incredibly confusing.
Totally. Someone might say, I talked to Sarah yesterday, with that upward inflection. Is it a statement? Are they unsure? Are they seeking confirmation? Without seeing their face for cues like raised eyebrows, you have to rely solely on interpreting that pitch contour in context. Training your ear to distinguish a habitual HRT from a genuine question is key.
Let's use that Seattle Starbucks example to make this concrete. You've ordered a complicated coffee.
Right. And the barista rattles back the order super fast. Grande latte, 2% extra shot. It's fast, maybe mumbled, connected speech. You didn't see their face clearly.
How does focusing on phonology help here?
You tune out the individual word uncertainty for a second and focus purely on the intonation at the very end. Extra shot. Did it go up? Yes. That distinct, subtle rise in pitch confirms for you that they are asking for verification. Is this correct? Rather than just stating the final order.
So that tiny auditory detail, the pitch change, replaces the need for a visual nod or raised eyebrow.
Precisely. It resolves the ambiguity using sound alone.
So the practice tip here is really about repetition, but focused repetition.
Yes. Take short phrases, especially ones where meaning hinges on stress or intonation. Listen to them multiple times, focusing only on the sound contour, the melody. Then, crucially, record yourself saying it, trying to match that native speaker contour. Internalize the sound pattern.
Okay, that's strategy A, the sound sleuth. What's B?
Strategy B is intentional prediction and anticipation, the mental GPS. Essentially, since you can't see what's coming visually, you have to try and predict what's coming linguistically and conceptually.
Using what you already know to guess ahead.
Exactly. You leverage your existing knowledge of the language, the topic, the world, to pre-activate relevant concepts in your long-term memory.
How does that help with the cognitive load problem? It sounds like extra work.
It seems counterintuitive, but it actually reduces load. Think of your brain's vocabulary. It's a lexicon, as a huge library. If you hear the conversation is about U.S. politics, your brain doesn't wait passively. It immediately goes to the politics section of the library and brings likely concepts, election, candidate, voters, policy, Congress, closer to the front desk, your working memory.
It narrows the search space.
Dramatically. So when the speaker actually says one of those words, like election, your working memory doesn't have to frantically search the whole library. The concept is already pre-activated, waiting right there. Processing becomes much faster, much more efficient.
That makes sense. It combats the speed issue of audio only. Let's use the NPR news segment example. Topic: U.S. presidential election.
Right. The host says something like, polls show a tightening race in several key states, and the latest numbers indicate a narrow lead for candidate Y among.
Okay, among. My brain starts guessing.
Based on the election context, it instantly anticipates high probability completions.
Yeah.
Among voters, among suburban women, among key demographics, among undecideds. So when the host finishes the sentence with, among independent voters, your brain processes it almost effortlessly. Why? Because independent voters was already on that mental waiting bench, primed and ready.
But what if it's a topic I know nothing about? How can I predict then?
Great question. If your world knowledge fails you because the topic is new, you fall back on your linguistic knowledge.
Meaning grammar.
Exactly. You predict the type of word or phrase that's likely to come next based on the grammatical structure. If you hear a preposition like among, a noun or noun phrase has to follow. If you hear an auxiliary verb like she might have, you anticipate a past participle like gone, seen, finished.
So you predict the grammatical slot, even if not the exact word.
Precisely. It still helps structure your listening and reduces uncertainty. And the practice tip here is absolutely vital. Use that pause button. While listening, pause occasionally. Actually say your prediction aloud or mentally, and then press play to see if you were right. Active prediction.
Got it. Strategy C.
Enhanced micro-summarizing and mental rehearsal, the internal echo chamber. This is all about fighting memory decay. Auditory information is fleeting.
It disappears quickly from working memory, especially without visuals to help anchor it.
Exactly. So you need to actively work to solidify it. The technique is simple. After every few sentences, or after a complete thought or point is made by the speaker, you mentally pause.
Just for a second.
Just for a second. And you paraphrase or summarize what you just heard in your own mental words. And importantly, you might also mentally repeat any key phrases or new vocabulary that felt tricky.
So it's like creating a little instant replay in your head.
It is. This intentional mental recap does two things. It strengthens the memory trace, pushing it towards longer-term storage, and it acts as a constant comprehension check.
How so?
If you try to summarize the last point and you find you can't articulate it clearly in your head, that's immediate feedback. You didn't actually grasp it fully. You need to rewind or refocus. It bridges the gap to long-term memory without needing to see notes or a transcript.
Let's apply this to the online university lecture example. Audio only, American history, topic is the Civil War. The professor explains the concept of states' rights.
Okay, point made. Now the listener needs to activate the internal echo chamber. They mentally pause and rehearse. Okay, states' rights. Professor said it meant southern states wanting more power than the federal government, especially about slavery.
You lock down that concept.
You lock it down before the professor moves on to the next contributing factor, like economic differences or tariffs. If you don't consolidate that first point, states' rights, the subsequent details about economics won't have a foundation to attach to. They'll just float away.
The practice tip seems straightforward, but requires discipline.
It does. Listen to a challenging bit of audio for maybe 30 seconds or a minute. Pause. Close your eyes, if it helps. Then try to replay it in your mind and summarize the main ideas out loud or just internally, relying purely on your auditory recall.
Makes sense. On to strategy D.
Strategy D, leveraging context. The Sherlock Holmes approach. We touched on context earlier, but this is about actively, consciously using every single piece of available information as a clue when the visual clues are missing.
So, becoming a detective of sound and language?
Pretty much. You're not just passively receiving sound. You are actively gathering evidence from the overall topic, what you know about the speaker, if anything, the grammatical structures they use, their vocabulary choices, and even the background sounds, the soundscape.
Traffic noise, people laughing, music.
Exactly. All of it helps you build a richer, more robust mental model of the situation, purely from auditory and linguistic input. This model compensates for the lack of visuals and is particularly helpful for disambiguating words.
Like our pants versus pains problem.
Right. If you hear an ambiguous word, you interrogate the context you've built. What's the topic? What words came just before? What's the likely scenario? Let's use the remote team meeting example.
Okay. Virtual call. Topic. Q4 numbers. Finance context established.
The manager mentions reviewing the latest forecast. Then a bit later, a voice you might not recognize clearly pipes up and says, well, I think the forecasters are being a bit optimistic this quarter.
Forecasters? Could mean weather forecasters.
Out of context, maybe.
Oh.
But in this established context, Q4 numbers, finance, the manager just said forecast, your Sherlock Holmes brain instantly deduces. Forecasters here must mean the financial prediction team, the people who create the financial forecast.
The context overrides the potential ambiguity.
The established semantic field provides the certainty. You use the clues topic, preceding vocabulary, to solve the mini-mystery of the word's meaning.
So a good way to practice this is with things like audio dramas.
Excellent practice. Audio dramas or podcast with rich sound design. Listen actively and try to visualize everything. The setting, what the characters are doing, their moods, purely based on the dialogue, the sound effects, the music, the tone of voice. Rebuild the scene using only your ears.
Strategy E feels like maybe the most straightforward, but also maybe the hardest to stick with.
Probably. Strategy E is deliberate exposure to audio-only sources, the immersion chamber. You simply have to put in the time practicing the specific skill you want to improve.
Makes sense. If you want to get better at swimming, you have to get in the pool.
Exactly. You need to consciously, deliberately seek out and engage with listening materials where there are no visual aids, no videos, no transcripts readily available, no faces to watch.
You have to wean yourself off the visual dependency?
You do. This consistent immersion forces your brain to actually develop and sharpen its audio memory pathways. It gets faster at processing sound, better at holding auditory information, and, very importantly, it increases your tolerance for ambiguity.
Tolerance for ambiguity. Meaning you don't panic when you miss something.
Right. You learn that it's okay not to catch every single word. Consistent exposure trains your brain when it hits a fuzzy spot, not to shut down, but to keep listening, use the context, use prediction, and try to infer the missing piece, or just keep track of the main idea.
The U.S. story example was the podcast enthusiast.
Yeah. Making a conscious choice. Instead of automatically turning on the TV news where you see the anchors, you choose to listen to a news podcast like The Daily or NPR's Up First while you commute or do chores.
Or picking an audiobook instead of watching a movie adaptation.
Or engaging with a complex narrative podcast like Serial instead of a video documentary on the same topic. Even just making regular phone calls to friends instead of defaulting to text messages. It's about deliberately choosing the audio-only format whenever feasible.
And start easy.
Definitely. Start with content you're really interested in, maybe something less information-dense like a comedy podcast or interviews. Then gradually ramp up the difficulty move towards more technical lectures, faster-paced panel discussions, maybe audio with more diverse accents. Build the muscle gradually.
Okay, last strategy.
F. Strategy F. Targeted repetition and active recall for audio product. The rewind button strategy. This builds on repetition, but adds a crucial active component.
So when you had a really confusing bit, something blurred, ambiguous, you just couldn't parse it.
You don't just skip over it. You rewind. You listen again, maybe several times. But here's the key. Listening again passively isn't enough. You need active recall.
Meaning?
Meaning, after you've listened a couple of times, you pause the audio. Then you try to actively retrieve and articulate, either mentally or out loud, the exact words, or at least the core meaning of that difficult segment, without listening again right away, and definitely without looking at a transcript if one even exists.
Why is that active recall step so much better than just hitting play again?
Because the act of forcing your brain to retrieve the information from memory, to reconstruct it internally, is incredibly powerful for learning and retention. It strengthens the neural pathways associated with that specific auditory information much, much more effectively than simply passively re-exposing your brain to the sound. Retrieval practice is potent.
Okay, let's use the stand-up comedy bit example. You're listening, but you totally missed the punchline because the audience roared with laughter right over the crucial word.
All right, so you rewind. You don't just listen once more. Maybe you listen 3 times. First time, focus on the rhythm and setup. Second time, focus intently on the words you did catch leading up to the laugh. Third time, focus on the comedian's intonation just before the laugh.
Okay, multiple focus listens, then what?
Then you pause it, and you actively try to reconstruct the joke in your head. What was the setup? What words did I hear? What must the missing word or phrase have been to make the audience laugh like that, given the context and the intonation? Maybe you even say the reconstructed punchline out loud.
That effortful retrieval really locks it in.
It forces that audio-focused recall, helping you unlock the nuance you missed and cementing that particular phrasing or word in your audio memory bank.
And the practice tip involves creating audio flashcards.
Yeah, this is a great technique. Record yourself saying tricky idioms, phrases with difficult reductions, or sentences where stress changes the meaning. Then, play these short recordings back randomly, listen once or twice, pause, and practice actively recalling and explaining the meaning or the exact phrasing. It's targeted retrieval practice on demand.
Okay, so those 6 strategies: sound sleuth, mental GPS, internal echo chamber, Sherlock Holmes context, immersion chamber, and rewind button with active recall. That's the toolkit.
That's the architect's toolkit for building that strong, independent audio memory, building your own internal fortress against auditory ambiguity.
And it really starts with a mindset shift, doesn't it? Acknowledging the frustration, but seeing it differently.
Absolutely. It's totally normal to feel frustrated when you lose that visual anchor and suddenly feel lost. We all do. But the crucial step is to reframe it. Don't see that moment as failure. See audio-only listening not as a disadvantage, but as maybe the single best opportunity you have to forge truly robust, independent listening skills. Skills that will work anywhere, anytime.
Because audio memory isn't some innate talent you either have or don't have.
Not at all. It is fundamentally a skill. And like any skill, it's developed through practice, through patience, through persistence, through applying these strategies consistently. And importantly, celebrating the small wins.
Like when you finally understand that fast-talking podcast host.
Exactly. Or when you successfully navigate a whole phone call without asking, could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Or when you correctly pick up on sarcasm just from the tone of voice. Acknowledge those victories. They build momentum.
And the ultimate reward for putting in this work.
It's genuinely transformative, I think. When you gain the ability to listen accurately and confidently without visual cues, you unlock access to the full spectrum of authentic, unadulterated spoken English.
High-stakes phone calls become less daunting.
Much less daunting. You can absorb complex information deeply from audiobooks or lectures. You can understand the nuances in podcasts or radio that others might miss. You become less dependent, more capable.
And interestingly, this focused audio training actually makes you a better listener overall, even when you do have visuals.
Without a doubt. By sharpening your ear and speeding up your auditory processing, you become more attuned to nuance in all communication contexts. When you go back to face-to-face conversations, your ear is just sharper. Your overall listening acuity is enhanced. You become more discerning, more confident interpreter of spoken language, period.
So to wrap up, let's leave our listeners with that final provocative thought, building on the phonology idea.
Right. Thinking about strategy A, the sound sleuth, and how tiny sound details carry weight. Consider this. If you are relying purely on sound, how much crucial meaning hangs on that tiny difference in stress between the noun record record, like a vinyl disc or a historical account, and the verb record, record, meaning the action of capturing sound or information.
Wow, yeah. Record versus record, totally different meanings.
Totally different. Past artifact versus future action. That tiny shift in stress, easily overlooked in text, becomes a massive semantic distinction in audio only. Mastering the ability to reliably catch those subtle shifts, those minute details, that's what it means to truly decode the unseen orchestra. That's the power we're aiming to build.
A fantastic challenge to leave us with. Until next time, keep listening smarter. Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast English listening practice topic name is Shadowing, the Art of Echo Listening.
Mm-hmm.
And welcome back to the deep dive. Now, while that was the official title, one of our listeners suggested, our mission here is always pure deep dive. We're taking this really powerful but sometimes overlooked technique called shadowing. And we're going to pull apart all the practical secrets, the science behind it. We've got some great research to work from. And basically, we want to give you a shortcut to, getting better at English.
It really is. I think transformative isn't too strong a word for it. Shadowing, or as we're calling it, the art of echo listening. It sounds simple on the surface, doesn't it?
Yeah, just repeat what you hear.
Right. You listen, you repeat simultaneously, you become this kind of human echo.
Yeah.
But the actual cognitive load, the physical demands, they're huge. And honestly, that's exactly why it works so well.
So it's more than just like parroting words back. You're trying to capture the entire sound.
That's it, exactly. When we say echo, we really mean copying everything. The speed, those little changes in pitch, the rhythm, how exactly they pronounce each tiny sound, each foam. It forces your listening and speaking bits to work together completely.
Okay, and where did this intense method actually start? It sounds pretty hardcore, almost like extreme immersion.
Well, it did come from a pretty extreme place. Shadowing actually started out back in the mid-20th century as a core training exercise for simultaneous interpreters.
Okay. The people translating in real time at conferences and things.
Exactly. Those professionals, they have just milliseconds between hearing something and saying it in another language.
Yeah.
They needed absolute instant command orally over both languages.
Right, that makes sense. There's basically zero time to think or process. It has to be automatic. Reaction and replication.
Totally. And that need for speed is what makes shadowing so effective for any language learner. It forces you away from just, passive listening, where maybe you understand it, but you couldn't say it yourself easily.
Right.
And pushes you into this really active, very physical learning mode. You're engaging your ears, your mouth, your brain's motor planning all at once. You internalize the language patterns in a way that, reading a grammar book just can't touch.
Okay, let's definitely unpack this. So plan is, we'll start with the science bit, get a little technical, look at the brain side of things, then the specific skills it helps with, and then the main part, digging into 10 really different situations where you can use shadowing. Everything from just listening to a podcast to like giving a formal lecture.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, let's tackle the big question first. I know the grammar, I know the vocab. Why should I spend my precious study time just echoing sounds? Why is shadowing scientifically better than, say, flashcards or just repeating lists of words?
That's a really fair question. And it gets to the heart of how language actually lives in our brains. Traditional methods, flashcards, drills, they lean heavily on memory, on intellect. It's about knowing the language.
Right, remembering rules.
Exactly. Shadowing, though, is all about doing the language. It puts you under the pressure of a real-time conversation, something flashcards just can't simulate.
Okay, so break that down. What specific language skills does it actually target?
Well, I see three main areas, and they're all kind of connected. First, this is a big one for many learners, you get significant accent reduction. Because you're forcing your mouth, your tongue, your vocal cords to match the native speaker's sounds, you naturally start to smooth out the interference from your first language.
Makes sense.
Second, it hugely improves your prosody.
Okay, hold on, prosody. For anyone listening who might not know that term, what exactly is it?
Good point. Prosody isn't just about how loud you speak. It's the whole melody, the music of the language.
The rhythm and pitch changes.
Precisely. It covers stress, which syllable you emphasize, intonation, the rise and fall of your voice, and the overall rhythm. It's how you know if someone's asking a question, or feels unsure, or is making a really confident statement. So many learners get the words right, but the music is off, They sound flat, or maybe unintentionally rude.
Yeah, I can see how that would cause problems.
Shadowing helps you internalize that natural music. And third, probably the most crucial payoff. It massively boosts your spontaneous speaking skills. You're training your brain and mouth to fire together instantly without that awkward pause where you're consciously trying to build a sentence grammatically.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, it's like training the physical mechanics, the hardware of speech, rather than just loading up the software, the intellectual rules.
That's a fantastic analogy, yes. And the effectiveness of this motor skill approach, it's backed by some pretty solid research. Studies looking at language acquisition, some from major universities, they've shown that learners who consistently practice shadowing can boost their listening comprehension by as much as 30%.
Wow, 30%, just from listening and mimicking. That seems like a huge leap. How does that actually happen?
It comes down to the neuroscience, really. When you just listen passively, you're mainly using one part of your brain, Wernicke's area, that's for understanding language. When you speak, you use another part, Broca's area, the motor speech center.
Okay.
Traditional learning often keeps these separate. You listen, then you speak. Shadowing forces the connection between them to activate at the same time. This constant, immediate producing while understanding strengthens those neural pathways between your ears and your voice box. You're basically training your brain to predict the sounds it's about to hear and execute them instantly.
So, my understanding gets better because my brain is already planning the sound as I hear it. That makes the connection stickier.
You got it.
Yeah.
And there's more. Some researchers think shadowing heavily involves something called mirror neurons.
Ah, I've heard of those. They fire when you do something and when you see someone else do it.
That's the idea. With shadowing, you're observing the sound, the action, and immediately doing it yourself. This might help embed those language patterns directly into your motor system, almost bypassing conscious thought. It takes language learning beyond just brain work and turns it into an embodied automatic response, like muscle memory, but for your vocal tract.
Okay, here's a practical hurdle, though. If I'm focusing like crazy on matching the sound, on the pronunciation, won't that just mess up my actual understanding of what's being said? How do you handle that split attention, especially if you're just starting out?
That's a really critical point. And honestly, it's where a lot of people stumble when they first try it. The cognitive demand of true simultaneous shadowing, where you're like a split second behind the speaker, it's very high. That's why you absolutely need to start with something called the lag technique.
The lag technique. Tell me more.
Okay, so instead of trying to echo instantly, you listen to a short chunk, maybe a phrase, 2 to 4 seconds of speech, then you pause or just let that chunk finish, then you repeat it. You're shadowing, but with a slight delay.
Ah, okay. Gives your brain a moment to catch up.
Exactly. That lag gives your comprehension center, Wernicke's area, time to process the meaning before your speech center, Broca's area, kicks in to produce the sound. As you get better, more comfortable, you gradually shorten that lag time. Eventually, you can work towards that true, near-simultaneous echoing. It just means you build up your listening comprehension first before you max out the speed.
That definitely makes it sound much less intimidating. So this means shadowing isn't just for, like, super advanced learners polishing their accent.
Not at all. That's one of its biggest plus points, its versatility. For beginners who are struggling just to hear and make the basic sounds, it cements the phonetics. For intermediate folks trying to sound less robotic, it really nails down that prosody, the rhythm and flow. And yeah, for advanced learners, it's the tool for fine-tuning eloquence, for absorbing really complex, native-like idioms, getting that final polish. It works right across the board.
Right. Okay. That sets the stage perfectly. Let's shift gears now from the why, the science, to the how and where, moving from brain theory to the actual practical toolkit you can start using today.
Let's do it.
We've grouped these 10 applications into sort of clusters, starting with cluster A, which is all about getting that natural flow, picking up idioms, getting the rhythm right for everyday casual chat.
Yeah, this cluster is focused on making your English sound authentic, relaxed, the kind of language you need just to connect with people easily.
Okay, first up, situation 1, shadowing podcasts for everyday vocabulary. Podcasts are huge, right? People listen while commuting, working out. How do we make that listening active, turn it into real shadowing practice?
Podcasts are brilliant for this because they give you instant access to real, natural, conversational English. And they're great for multitasking, provided you do it right. Think about, say, a podcast discussing daily routines. Instead of just saying, I start my day, the host might talk about using coffee to kickstart their morning.
Right, more energetic.
Or they might say they need to loosen up their muscles before tackling the big challenges of the day. These phrasal verbs, they're everywhere in natural speech.
Yeah, and those are exactly the kinds of things that can trip learners up. So how do we make sure we're getting the sound right, not just memorizing the definition?
Okay, the strategy here has a few layers. First, If you are multitasking, you absolutely have to use the speed control on your player. Start at maybe 0.75x speed. This lets you use that lag technique we talked about.
Slower pace makes it manageable.
Definitely. So if you hear the host say something like, "That sounds invigorating," you pause or use the lag to really focus on where the stress falls. NVIG or aiding. See how the emphasis hits that third syllable? That little detail is often the difference between sounding okay and sounding really natural.
And what about checking if I'm actually doing it right? Because my own ear might not be the best judge, especially at first.
That's the number one issue people run into. You have to record yourself. It feels weird at first, but it's essential. Use your phone's voice memo app or whatever simple recorder you have. Record yourself shadowing just a minute or two of the podcast.
Okay.
Then, listen back immediately and compare it directly to the original speaker. Pay attention to pitch. Does your voice drop too much at the end of sentences? Does it sound less engaged? Compare the speed. Compare the intonation. Are you matching the rise in pitch for questions or exclamations? That comparison is where the real learning happens.
Got it. Record and compare. Okay, moving to situation 2. Echoing song lyrics for rhythmic pronunciation. This sounds, well, more fun.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's super effective. Music naturally blends rhythm and rhyme, which is fantastic for improving your phonetic flow, how smoothly you link sounds together. Plus, you pick up colloquialisms, sometimes even slang, without really trying. Think of pop songs talking about city lights, feeling free, life being a melody,
Yeah, the beat kind of carries you along and you absorb the patterns.
Exactly, because rhythm is a core part of that prosody we mentioned. So the key practical tip here is really mechanical. You have to synchronize your syllables precisely with the beat of the music. If the singer draws out the word melody over 3 distinct beats, your voice has to hit those same time markers. It trains your mouth to be flexible.
Okay, timing is everything.
And for a tougher challenge, especially for more advanced learners, try shadowing just by ear. Put the lyric sheet away.
Ooh, tricky.
It really forces your listening skills into high gear. Your brain has to grab the words purely from the sound, fighting against the music. It's a great test of accuracy.
Definitely sounds like a good workout for the ears. Okay, last one in this cluster. Situation 3. Repeating casual conversations for social skills. This feels really important for just, fitting in and building rapport.
Oh, absolutely critical. This is how you internalize common idioms, get the feel for informal tone, and master those quick back and forth structures you need in real chat. Imagine listening to friends talking about needing coffee after pulling an all-nighter because they were binge-watching a TV show.
Happens all the time.
And they call that coffee their absolute lifesaver. Those words are pure, everyday conversational glue.
And terms like binge-watching pop up so fast. How do you capture those effectively through shadowing?
Here, the focus shifts slightly. You need to capture the naturalness of slang, yes, but also really nail the contractions and elisions, when sounds get squished together or disappear. So you consciously practice saying what's instead of what is, or gonna instead of going to.
The shortcuts of speech?
Exactly. But maybe even more important than the words themselves is the expressiveness. If the person you're shadowing laughs, you need to practice echoing that laugh authentically. If they sound tired or excited or sarcastic, your tone has to mirror that emotional color. A great way to practice is shadowing conversational podcasts or interview shows where people are just chatting naturally. You pick up the hesitations, the ums and ahs, the little agreement noises.
Yeah, I remember trying to use really formal English once in a casual setting, and it just sounded so stiff and awkward. Fluidity and matching the emotions seemed key here.
Totally. And that fluidity often comes from mimicking those little sounds, too, the ahas, the even the slight vocal fries someone might use when they're relaxed or tired. Those are the subtle signals that build real connection.
Okay, sharp turn now. We're stepping away from the relaxed world of slang and everyday chat, where maybe small mistakes don't matter as much, and we're moving into situations where precision really counts formal and professional settings. Cluster B is all about clarity, good enunciation, and sounding confident.
Right, this is a crucial shift. Formal English often demands a different kind of shadowing focus. Less about relaxed rhythm, maybe, and more about clear articulation, proper structure, and technical accuracy. This is vital for anyone who needs to sound credible and polished in their job or in more formal social situations.
Let's start with situation 4, echoing news broadcasts for formal language. I can see how this would be great for picking up more sophisticated vocabulary and sounding articulate.
Oh, it's fantastic for that. News reports, especially from sources known for clear, well-structured delivery, give you a steady diet of formal English. It's perfect for learning precise pronunciation and getting comfortable with current affairs language. Think about a report on a climate summit. You'll hear words like delegates, phrases about transitioning to greener energy, talk about global equity, or the need for sustainable policies.
Yeah, often longer words, multi-syllable words that can easily trip you up if you haven't practiced the stress patterns.
Exactly. So the specific tip here is to really zoom in on enunciation. Unlike the fast flow of some podcasts, here you might want to deliberately use a slightly longer lag, maybe a second or two behind the speaker. This gives your brain time to register the whole complex sentence before you try to say it. Take a phrase like unprecedented flooding. You'd repeat it almost analytically, unprecedented flooding. Make sure every consonant is sharp, every syllable stress is in the right place.
And what kind of news sources are best? Should you use transcripts?
Absolutely. Use transcripts whenever possible. Major news outlets often provide them. This lets you check the words and focus purely on matching the sound. And for a real challenge for more advanced folks, try shadowing a live broadcast. Using that lag technique, you're essentially training your brain to predict the typical structures and phrasing of formal reporting. It's a serious cognitive workout.
Sounds tough but rewarding, especially for career growth. Which leads us nicely into situation 5, mimicking job interviews for professional dialogue. This is super practical, hitting those high-pressure career moments head-on.
Definitely. This practice is all about preparing you to sound concise, confident, and confident when the stakes are high. The kind of language you'd chat out here centers on skills and actions. Imagine echoing a mock interview answer where someone says their experience aligns perfectly with the job description, or they talk about how they prioritize competing tasks, or how they collaborated with a team to meet tight deadlines.
Tone is absolutely critical here, right? You can't sound hesitant.
No way. A great physical tip for this one is to actually shadow while standing up, especially if you're watching a video of someone giving a good interview response. Practicing with good posture helps you project confidence, and that comes across in your voice. When you echo phrases like, "This aligns with my skills," consciously aim for a steady, even, perhaps slightly lower pitch. It conveys assurance. Look at career coaching videos online. Many offer model answers to common interview questions. Shadow those, then immediately try to adapt them using your own experience.
Practicing standing up like that connects the physical and vocal confidence. Okay, and for really commanding attention, situation 6, echoing speeches for public speaking mastery. This is about sounding truly persuasive, maybe even inspiring.
Right. This moves beyond just clarity into the realm of eloquence. You're learning to master rhetorical tricks and vocal dynamics. Think of a powerful motivational speech, someone urging the audience, choose courage over comfort, action over apathy. They might use strong verbs like forge when talking about building a new path.
With great speeches, it's so much about the delivery, the pauses, the build-up.
That's the core insight here. The actionable tip is to meticulously practice controlling your volume and intensity. As you echo, choose courage over comfort. Let your volume rise, hit that word courage hard. Then analyze how great speakers use pauses. Think about famous speeches. The silence is often as powerful as the words. Shadowing helps you internalize that rhythm, that timing. You start to feel how they build energy, then maybe drop to a near whisper for effect. It dramatically improves your own ability to engage an audience.
So we've hit casual rhythmic and formal precise. What's next? Looks like we're diving into narrative, emotion, and academic stuff.
Exactly. Cluster C is about depth conveying nuanced emotion, telling compelling stories, and handling complex academic language.
Yeah.
This final cluster is where shadowing helps you really master the expressive potential of English, whether that's showing subtle feelings or explaining complicated ideas clearly.
Okay, let's start with situation 7, mimicking movie dialogues for emotional expression, getting beyond just the words to the feelings behind them. This sounds like fun, but also challenging.
It is. It's fantastic for boosting empathy, but also practically, it teaches you how to use tone to convey a huge range of feelings. That adds real richness to your everyday speech, too. Imagine a tense scene in a drama, maybe dialogue heavy with words like betrayal or survival, where one character is accusing another of making excuses.
Right. When someone's upset or angry, their voice changes completely, pitch, speed, everything.
Totally. So the tip here is, don't be afraid to exaggerate when you shadow. Lean into the emotion. If the line is, "How could you betray me like that?" your pitch needs to shoot up on betray to capture that anger or pain. Maybe drop hard on that for emphasis. Using movies with subtitles is great for this. Pick a character in a dramatic film and focus just on shadowing their emotional ups and downs.
How can you check if you're matching the emotion accurately?
Well, besides recording yourself, a really cool tech trick is to use audio editing software, even free stuff like Audacity. It can show you a waveform of the sound. You can literally see the shape of the original actor's intonation, the peaks and valleys, and compare it visually to the waveform of your own voice. If your peak for betray looks much smaller, you know you need to push the emotion more.
Wow, visual feedback for your intonation. That's really specific. I like that.
It makes it very concrete.
Okay, next, situation 8. Repeating TED Talks for inspirational speaking. We mentioned speeches before, but TED Talks have that unique blend of big ideas and polished, persuasive delivery.
Exactly. TED Talks are superb for practicing how to present complex ideas in an engaging, often motivational way. A speaker might redefine innovation as small, daily improvements, not just big breakthroughs. They'll use sophisticated verbs like foster or nurture when talking about ideas, or maybe describe a concept as indispensable.
They often speak quite quickly, too, very smoothly. How do you keep up with that polished pace?
You absolutely need a chunking strategy here. Don't try to shadow the whole thing nonstop at first. Break it down. Shadow maybe just a sentence or two at a time. Pause the audio if you need to. Really focus on getting the rhythm and the smooth connection between phrases right, like making foster creativity and build innovative pathways flow naturally. And pay close attention to rhetorical questions. When the speaker asks, why not? Echo it with the exact same pause, the same inflection. Practicing those is key for your own persuasive ability. A good motivational tip. Shadow the same talk repeatedly over several weeks. Maybe a classic like Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and actively notice how much better your flow and command get each time.
Right, repetition on the same material builds mastery. Okay, now for situation 9. Shadowing audiobooks for narrative fluency. This sounds perfect for people who love reading or maybe want to improve their own creative writing or storytelling.
Oh, definitely. This is brilliant for developing your narrative skills because you're immersed in descriptive language, often very rich and evocative. Think of a skilled narrator describing the sun having dipped below the hills, casting long shadows, and maybe a character's voice trembling as someone unexpected emerged from the mist.
Yeah, audiobook narrators are often amazing voice actors, varying pace and tone constantly.
They really are. So the key tip here is to consciously play with your speed. When you shadow descriptive parts, slow down, really savor the language. If the book says a chill ran down her spine, maybe stretch out the word chill slightly. Use your voice to create that feeling. And if you're listening to a book with multiple characters, especially something like fantasy or sci-fi with distinct voices,
like Harry Potter or something.
Exactly. Practice switching your voice to match those different characters as you shadow. It builds incredible vocal flexibility. And here's another tip. Connect the shadowing to writing. After you shadow a scene, try summarizing it quickly in your own words, maybe consciously using some of the new vocabulary or descriptive phrases you just practiced.
Nice link between speaking and writing. Okay, final one, and maybe the toughest. Situation 10. Shadowing lectures for academic English. This is for students, researchers, anyone dealing with dense technical language.
Yeah, this can be the most challenging application because the goal isn't just pronunciation. It's about improving comprehension and retention of complex, specialized information. Imagine a university lecture on quantum physics, talking about entanglement, how it's defying classical physics. The lecturer might use words like revolutionizing and pack information instantly into complex sentences.
Academic language can be incredibly dense. How does shadowing help you actually process that information overload?
Well, one feature of academic English is the heavy use of nominalizations turning actions or descriptions into dense nouns. So instead of things change quickly, a lecturer might say, the rapidity of the change, or the emergence of this phenomena. Shadowing forces you to decode these dense phrases actively. A specific tactic is to shadow while taking brief notes. When you hear and then immediately say a key term like untanglement, you're reinforcing it both auditorily and vocally. It helps lock it in your memory and make sure you spell it right later.
So the physical act of speaking the term helps you remember it and take better notes.
Precisely. Also, use lectures from online platforms where you can pause and replay easily. And here's a subtle but powerful tip. Don't just shadow the words, shadow the pauses. Lecturers often pause just before or after defining a key concept or shifting topics. By mimicking that pause, you train your brain to recognize those structural cues, which significantly aids comprehension and retention of complex material. It's almost like using shadowing for information management. Hashtag tag conclusion and final thought. So if we kind of tie all these different threads together, what we see is that shadowing, this art of echo listening, isn't just a simple drill. It's really a whole discipline, a transformative practice. It works by embedding English deeply into your physical, subconscious motor system. And the sheer range we've covered, from casual chat, pop songs, all the way to formal news, academic lectures, emotional movie scenes, it just proves how versatile it is. It gives you real, concrete ways to tackle pretty much any communication challenge you'll face.
Right. So what's the bottom line for you listening right now? The absolute key to making this work, as with so many things, is consistency. It doesn't have to be hours every day, but finding even just 10 or 15 minutes for focused, deliberate shadowing practice regularly, that's what makes the difference. Stop just passively listening and hoping for the best. Get active with it.
Absolutely. Embrace this active mimicry, this idea of motor planning your speech. You'll find that echoing the rhythm, the pitch, all those little nuances of native speech, it starts to feel, well, as natural as breathing after a while. And you will see real measurable progress in your pronunciation and, crucially, in how well you understand spoken English.
And our final thought for you to chew on today is this. Really embrace shadowing and you will watch your English take off. Because when you think about it, the best, most fluent speakers, they're almost always the best, most attentive listeners first.
And if you found value in this deep dive, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.